So today we're going to talk about Integrative Preparedness's latest video, The Truth on Canadian Prepper. Now, he was forthright. He gave his opinion. He stood behind it. And I agree, he was pretty harsh. But I think the issue here is he mischaracterized the people that disagreed with him. And in doing this, I think he exercised his bias. And when we look at his bias, he is a book writer, and he does his channel to promote books and in order to help people. Now, what I find interesting is, coming from this perspective, I think that it biased his understanding of Canadian prepper and some of the issues there. And characterizing people as communists that have an issue with making money is very disingenuous. And it is a tool to attempt to discredit opposing opinions. Because the real crux of the issue with Canadian prepper is, does he exist in the sphere in order to help a lot of people primarily, or does he exist to make a lot of money and help people as a secondary objective? So that's a question you're going to have to answer for yourself. In my opinion, Canadian prepper does not do very much whatsoever to float the boats of everybody, only those of upper income status, so middle class and above, where we leave the rest of the population behind. And that's my opinion for what it's worth. Now, I have no issue with anybody making money. I know I've been in business for over 32 years. I've sold weapons, I've done engineering work, I've built all kinds of stuff for governments, corporations, and I see no issues with that. Now, what I do see an issue with is withholding information and only helping those that have the funds to satisfy whatever desires the author has. So when we look at Canadian prepper, let's look at two things. Does he provide information that will help everyone to survive? And I know that's a difficult question to answer, but let's look at it from two directions. Number one, we know for long-term survival, community survival, World War III survival, and whatever else happens, you have to have the capacity to produce. So does he stress and do any videos on small-scale manufacture, at-home manufacture? We have to get places, we have to do things, we have to build infrastructure. Does he do any videos on improvised and expedient construction? Does he do any videos on improvised and expedient manufacturing? Does he do any videos on foraging, salvage, recycling, and reuse of materials in the manufacturing effort for long-term survival? Now, he does touch on some farming and gardening techniques, but he doesn't do it in a primitive nature where you don't have monetary inputs. If you look at my old videos, we talk about why you have to have a lot of forested land around your ag op, because you're going to be utilizing the mulch, the decaying material, as your primary source of fertilizing the soil, rather than buying something or transporting something that's not available. So does he approach food production from the standpoint of utilizing available materials, or is it commercial applications of commercial products? So the last issue, and I think the biggest with Canadian prepper, is the fact that some of his recommendations for equipment, material, and some of the tests are unrealistic. And this is one of the biggest issues I've had with this channel. Now, I've been banned on most YouTube channels in the survival and in the prepping community. There are a few people that haven't banned me, and they're usually interested in open discussion. Now, my teaching method that I've utilized over the last 40 years has been conversational learning. So the best way to learn is through conversation where both sides interact, and through the synthesis of that, the best techniques, the best information rises to the top, and you utilize that. That is something that cannot happen if people ban commenters on their channels because they're thin-skinned. So there's a difference between banning people because you don't want to have any discussion of what you're doing versus banning people for bad behavior. So you're going to have to answer the question for yourself. Does Canadian Prepper ban people because he does not like anybody pointing out inaccuracies or errors on his videos? Now, I'm going to give you two examples. One is the burglar bar that he was recently demonstrating, advertising, testing, whatever you want to call it. Now, I did a lot of entry work on different buildings, and that was from a maintenance standpoint, eviction standpoints, tactical, and then I'm also aware of how fire departments access and gain entry on buildings. So basically you have the finesse method, which you do minimal damage or no damage, and on a clandestine front, you do that so nobody knows you've come and gone. So if it's a surveillance op and you're planting bugs, you want to go in and out of the building with no damage at all and no trace that you've been in there. Now, when I was a kid, I did a lot of lock opening and door opening for eviction purposes. The real estate company I worked for had over 200 rental properties and over 100 for sale. And I would open these for law enforcement for eviction purposes. Now, there's a lot of tools and ways to do this. If you go to any of the fire department videos that are here on YouTube and you look at them, you will see that that burglar bar can be defeated in between 1 and 2 minutes. There are methods to assess a door, and when you do this, you push on it with your feet and your hands to find the weak points of it. That tells you where the locking mechanisms are engaged on the door frame. Then what you do after assessment is you gap the door in the weak spots. Once you gap the door, you're going to get it open. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I designed several entry resistant methods for doorways and used to install them for companies and people. And they will delay the opening, but they won't prevent it. Now, the question with Canadian Prepper is, are you trying to prevent a 15-year-old from breaking in? Or are you trying to prevent a knowledgeable individual in SHTF from breaching? So make up your mind which way you're going, then decide if that product suits you. Now, the second instance was the sandbags. And I made comments about the sandbags discussing that floor loading is critical. And I received a lot of negative feedback on that. And from CP, he's stating that people are complaining about a $10,000 video. And my response is, that's immaterial to me. You always have to consider structural and floor loading with any structural reinforcements or fortifications. So in reality, it's kind of like recommending a muzzle loader to people for SHTF, but you never show them how to load a muzzle loader in prone position or how to load a muzzle loader while you're moving across the battlefield. Just a few ramblings and thoughts. Please share your thoughts. See you on the next video.